Welcome, friends, to a very special episode. I'm joined today by our dear friend and author, Kate Merrick, who has been a two-time guest here on the podcast, and our founder and executive director of our ministry, Allie Marie Smith, who you all know as your co-host. You've probably heard by now, but Allie's book is releasing October 5th, and this is our book release party here on the podcast. Yay! So exciting! So today we're celebrating it with Kate and Allie and sharing all about it. Welcome, Kate and Allie.
Thank you. Hey.
So good to be with you guys.
Love it. Super fun.
So Allie, will you share with us? I mean, this book just has such a big heart. Kate, I know you feel the same way. I think that you've read many chapters in it. I have too, as recently as today. And I'm just so blessed by this book, being your friend, seeing this come to life. It represents so many years of faithful ministry and sowing into this and walking with God through good times and hard times and all the things. And so will you share with us, Allie, about just the beautiful heartbeat of this book?
Yes, absolutely. I would love to. But before I do, I just have to say it is really special just to have this conversation, to celebrate with you both. You are two of my dearest friends, and you both have seen me through some really hard times in my life and some really broken times in my life. And I feel like the mark of a true friend is that she sees you at your worst and she loves you anyway. And I'm just grateful to be your friend and to have your friendship in my life and other friends. And the world doesn't love us broken, but Jesus does, and true friends and loved ones do. So I just want to say how grateful I am for you and just to be celebrating this with you and many other friends who aren't on here today too. But
can I chime in, Allie? I think you are such a special woman, and I have treasured our friendship. We have so much fun together. You are just different than any of my other friends. You are up for anything. You're a hoot to be with. You are such an encouragement. And I just like, you sparkle, Allie. You truly sparkle. And I'm so grateful for you. I'm grateful we've been through so much together, so much. Just starting in Israel and ever since then. And I just want to tell you that you are a gift in my life. And I wish every single girl out there could have a friend like Allie.
Thank you so much. That really means
I want to second that. Yes, Kate, plus 100. Like, it's funny because I feel as I've gotten older, I've looked back on my friendships over the years. And some friends you are friends with in a season, and then that season sort of ends. And then there's these friends that God just has in every chapter of your story as these like really faithful friends. And I love you. And I'm so thankful for you that you've always pursued me as a friend and been so loving and always believing in me. And yes, thank you.
I'm grateful for you guys so much. Yes, I would love to share about the book. Oh my goodness, it is a lot to unpack. I feel like it's so many things. The title, for those who most people probably know by now, the title is not a surprise to our ministry. The title is Wonderfully Made. My publisher was great in coming up with the tagline. I feel like they really nailed it. Discover the identity, love, and worth you were created for. And it's not about finding the identity, love, and worth you're created for through self-actualization, but it's about finding it through a life-changing relationship with Jesus Christ. The only one who can truly save our souls, who has overcome death, who really gives us our true identity and our true worth. And there's 30 short chapters in it. As I know, you guys have had a chance to read through it. And every chapter in the book starts with the word made. So it uncovers 30 unique purposes that we've been made for, that we've been created for. And it was really important for me for the first 3 chapters to lay a really solid foundation about answers to some of the big questions. Like the first chapter is that we've been made by God. We didn't wonderfully evolve. We've been wonderfully made. We've been created. And that is where it begins. For me, that was the foundation of faith as a little girl, just looking at creation and knowing there was someone bigger than me, and that was God. And it wasn't until later that I came to a life-changing relationship with Christ once I really clearly heard the gospel message shared to me when I was 18. But the second chapter was like about the Bible, made to know God, and then made for a relationship with God. And then it just builds from there. Like I said, starts with the word made. So made in God's image, made to glorify God, made with love and wonder, made to live faithful, made for an outward focused life, made to live present. And so there's 30 topics, and it's really also a guidebook for living a really great life. It's not my wisdom. I mean, every chapter has like over 5 verses in it, and it's really biblical wisdom. That's nothing new that I wrote. It's just a reflection of the wisdom that the Bible offers us, and really believe that the life God invites us to is a better life. And I really do believe that this book really can change a woman's life. And like I said, it's not because of anything that I wrote in it. It's just simply just sharing eternal truths in a presentable way. And so I'm really excited, and I pray that it finds its way to the hands of the women who need it the most.
It's really cool because as you're sharing, Allie, each one of these chapters like is life that you've lived, friends that you've had, stories that you have experienced and interacted with, from your grandma's story to your friend's story being adopted. And each chapter has so much love and so much life in it. And I think it makes it that much more meaningful because this book has been a process. When did you start dreaming about this book? It was about a decade ago or so, wasn't it?
It was probably over 12 years ago. Just recently on my computer, I stumbled across the first outline for it. And it was over 12 years ago. And I remember being at my favorite writing nook on you both have been there with me, El Capitan Canyon, and writing out that outline. And I had to live a lot more life to write this book and really go through some really hard seasons and hard times. And it wasn't time yet, but God just really opened the door. I wasn't really looking to write this book. My agent emailed me, and then I had an amazing publisher, Moody, and they said yes. And then it was like my COVID project that I wrote in bed in isolation. And so this is the time, and this is the time for this message to get out there. And with the prevalence of so many women, young women of all ages, really battling with their mental health right now through the pandemic, I think this is the time that it's supposed to be out in the world.
I agree. I love watching, like you say, that God put this on your heart 12 years ago, that it was like a seed. And I feel like, wow, over the last 12 years, everything God has done in your life and all the ups and downs and all the, what's that one song? All my glitter, all my dirt. So there's a little dirt and there's some glitter. And it just makes so much more of a beautiful picture. Christie was saying how each story is just so filled with life and love and so much history. I'm going over the chapter titles this morning again, and I'm just like, oh, I want to read them all right now. Oh, I just feel this is the culmination of some years, and you're a young woman, okay? I'm a little older than you are. You're still a young woman, but this is a culmination of a whole lot of wisdom and a whole lot of like real. You're not coming from this place of, yeah, I don't really know much about this, but I'm going to tell you what I think because my life's been perfect. You're like, girl, I've been on my knees. Okay. So let's do this. And yet, like I said earlier, you are one of my most sparkly friends in the sense that you do search for beauty in everything. You're searching for beauty in the way you live your life, in the way you spend your time, in your relationships. Everything about you is beautiful, Allie, from head to toe, inside and out. And every single chapter is so relevant. And yes, I was going to say useful, but that is the same thing as relevant. But so, I just don't want to stop. I want to like, give me some more, give me some more. It's like
Yeah.
taking vitamins where you're like, this is so good for me to
Mhm.
ingest. I need this wisdom. It's wise. It's beautiful. It's fun. And to the listener, you want to know what it's like to be friends with Allie, read this book. Like you get to hear her stories. You get to walk with her down some hard roads. You get to be lifted up. That's the part I love the most is you're like, girl, take my hand, let's lift you up. I'm going back over again. I had the privilege and honor of endorsing this book and going back over and being like, oh yeah, I remember that part. I remember that part. Oh, I'm so grateful for that. So I can't wait to get this thing between covers. Okay. Not read it on my computer. I want it by my bed and I want to just eat a little chunk of it every night before I go to sleep.
That's so sweet. Thank you. That means a lot. I actually love the entire writing process, which is crazy besides setting sources, but I would wake up and have this blank page ahead of me. And it was like I got to go on this journey of God, of discovering what is true. I don't always write from a place of knowing, but I got to know God better and like just dive deeper into his word. And it was like such an honor and a joy to do that. And I do want to share that, like going back to just the point about I had this idea for this book 12 years ago. One thing I know about our amazing community of women here at Wonderfully Made is they want their lives to matter and they want to live for God. And they have dreams and they have aspirations. And I just want to say to any one of you listening that has these dreams of your heart is to just keep the light burning and keep pursuing them and keep showing up and pursuing these dreams and desires that God has put in your heart, because it might take longer than a decade, but in God's timing, if it's in his will, he will open the doors for those dreams to come into fruition. And with God, all things are possible. Your dreams are more than possible with God. So I just wanted to speak to our listeners too, and just encourage them in their own dreams.
It's so cool too, because I love that. I just think about all the journaling and all the stories that you've written down along the way that you brought to this book. So just to tack on to what you shared with everyone listening today, if you have a dream in your heart to write a book or a project that's just something that's a big dream that you feel like is on your heart, a lot of times, most of the time, it starts in just writing it down, probably just writing down the little things in the everyday. And then over time, that adds up. All the little pieces eventually bring the big dream to life. So Allie, you've been so open and honest about your struggles with depression. And I know that your heart for Wonderfully Made has always been to just be so open and honest with our community here and to make space for other people to do the same by being vulnerable yourself. And you shared your testimony here on the podcast in the episode called From Depression and Mental Health Struggles to Joy and Wellness. And you also write about some of your experiences in the book. You open with a really powerful personal story. Will you share a little bit of that with us today?
Sure. Yeah. I think this is the first time I'm telling this story in interview format, but I think it's the time that God has called me to share the story. You may know my story, but if you don't, when I grew up, I was a good girl from a good home. Everything looked good on the outside, had every reason to be happy. I really wasn't. 2 weeks after I graduated high school, came completely undone with severe clinical depression, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't talk. My body was alive. There was really no life within me. And so I was hospitalized, put on antidepressants, and sent home 3 days later for an outpatient program. And I was still gravely depressed. And it was excruciating. And I was deceived. I really believed the lie that the world was better off without me in it. I thought that ending my life was the only way, the only solution. And that's what mental illness will do. And, on a side note, I don't even personally like using the term mental illness for me personally, because most of my life I've been really well. So I grabbed the car keys, and my family lived in Silicon Valley, and they still do. And I headed for the Golden Gate Bridge with the intention to jump off and end my life. I just knew that was there, and I knew that would do it. And I neared the bridge, And I'm going to save the rest of the story of how God intervened in my life and showed me his grace and saved me from that for the book. But it is by God's grace that I am still here and that I have joy in my heart and a heart full of hope. And so that is just one story. And there's others in the book that I share about my journey with depression when it returned again when I was 21. And I write about that in my chapter, Made for Forgiveness. And I just want to say to anyone who struggles with their mental health, just keep showing up, keep looking for help, and it can be very treatable. And there's so much hope and so much help available. And I think one of the greatest things that I'm so grateful for is that God has given me this like extreme resolve to want to be made well. And I think of the story of the man at the pool of Bethesda, and Jesus asked him, do you want to be made well? And I think that's something God asks us in our lives. Do we want to be made well? And in our lives, we need to be willing and active participants with God in our healing journey. And so I'm so grateful that God has given me a very strong resolve to want to be made well. And again, that is from his grace. And I do all the things, like all the things for my mental health. I am religious about my mental health, and I pray for mercy every day that the Lord will preserve my mental health. And I just prayed that again before I got on this conversation. I don't know what God's plan for me is the rest of my days. I know that his grace is sufficient to get me through whatever it is it may be. So I just want to share that message of hope with anyone that's struggling, that's in the midst of it, or has a loved one struggling. And hopefully that's an encouragement to them.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It really is. I want you to share next about the meaning behind your book cover, because what you just shared is such a beautiful illustration. And so will you share with us today what inspired the book cover?
Yeah, definitely. My publisher was asking if I had any theme ideas for the cover, and I didn't really have any. And then I remembered the chapter that I wrote titled Made to be Redeemed. And in this chapter, I open with something called kintsugi pottery. Many of our listeners may already be familiar with it. Others, maybe it's the first time hearing about it. But kintsugi is a Japanese form of pottery. And the potter takes a piece of pottery that has been broken and shattered into many different pieces. And instead of throwing out that broken piece of pottery and all those pieces, he takes all of them and using a gold lacquer or like a thick resin material, mends them back together. And if you're watching the video, I have actually a piece of kintsugi pottery. And so that is a beautiful illustration of what only God can do with the broken parts of our lives. And I am a girl who has been broken as can be. And I tell some of the stories, but I don't tell all of the stories. But you know what? I will boast in my weakness, because it is by God's strength that I am here. And I think in breaking and coming to God, we can actually become more beautiful and more resilient. We can have more depth. We can have more empathy. And God can redeem even the terrible things that have been done to us, the hard parts of our lives. It doesn't mean that what happened is good, but that his eternal plan for us is good. And so that is what inspired the cover. I was just so excited about how it turned out. And so it's about God's redemption in our lives.
I love that. That is so powerful. I feel like, I know for me personally, one of my goals in life, or this was before life actually happened to me, was to be intact, right? To be that vase before it was shattered. And I thought that was the goal. What was going to be that give me a happy life or made my life meaningful or whatever. And I cannot think of a single person who has not been shattered in some way, shape, or form, whether it was as a child or currently or whatever. And some of us, our problems are bigger than others, and some are not. And if you're listening out there and you're like, yeah, my worst problem is what to wear to prom. God bless you. That's awesome. But I'm sure you've all also been through something. But I just think that I love the cover of your book, Allie, because, and we hold up that vase again for those who are watching, like, that is just gorgeous. This vase alone, all shiny and intact, it's nothing compared to that. And I think that it's just like something the enemy would tell us is if your track record is perfect, then you are good. You're good in God's sight. You're a good Christian. You can be loved, all these things. When in fact, like, to be a Christian, like the job description of to be a Christian is to be a broken person. No holy, intact, wonderful, 100% non-broken person is going to be a Christian because we all need Jesus. Those people don't exist. So I absolutely love that, because I think culture is telling us you have to be shiny and perfect. You're only going to show the highlight reel. You don't get to admit your faults. Like, you never have a bad hair day. That's what culture is telling us. We're photographing our lives and putting it through a filter, and we're fooling ourselves. We're fooling everybody else. When in fact, we all know that the person behind the lens is not the person on the screen. And it's just so powerful to just know, to have that honesty and to know, oh, this intact vase is not the goal, but this broken and put together with gold, that's the goal. And I think that's what's so powerful about your book, Allie, is that I think if anybody would take a second to have some self-reflection, they'd be like, okay, yeah, I'm broken. Okay, yeah. And instead of being like, well, then you're shattered on the floor, there's nothing for you. It's like, this is what God can do with you. And I feel like even looking, I love your biblical references of, hey, these are broken people. This is what God can do with a broken life. I love when you wrote about Esther and how powerfully God used her. I just love that whole theme. How do you say it?
Kintsugi.
I just think it's amazing. And I think you're a beautiful vase.
It's so cool. Yes, Kate, I love what you shared. And Allie, as you were holding up the vase and it's all the gold and you're sharing about brokenness, and it's like, the more brokenness, the more gold. Like, you have Jesus Christ. Lord, who else can do that? And I love that. And I also think about sometimes we have this idea that we come to Jesus and I will testify, like, Jesus, I was just so much in my rebellion after knowing the truth, after having Jesus in my life, and he saved my life again. And then I wander off sometimes and he saves my life again and again. And so our brokenness is not like this one-time event. I think we can have some big cracks and we can also have some little cracks. And that's what makes each of us unique and makes our vase, if we turn it over to Jesus, really beautiful. So yeah, I just love it.
I love that. More cracks, more gold.
And I've found that it's really our brokenness that is a bridge to one another. And it's really our perfection and our perfectionism that actually isolates us and really drives us from community. And yeah,
that's powerful. Just even that thought alone, like, listeners, do you want to be driven from your community? Do you want to continue to pursue this like ghost whisper of a non-grasping thing called perfectionism? No way.
And it's really what Wonderfully Made is all about, isn't it, Allie? You share in your book about rushing to be in a sorority and that whole process, and you're like charming people and putting on your best face. You come to find out afterwards that they like have their powwow after where they're like, this person gets a 4, this person gets a 6. Nothing against sororities. I know people can have a lot of fun in them. Just the contrast between something where you have to pay dues and you have to meet these certain standards versus what you share about in your book, the relationship with Jesus, and what you wanted to cultivate here in Wonderfully Made. Really, like, you are welcome as you are. There are no prerequisites. You're great just being you. So will you share a little bit for those who are tuning into the podcast but don't have really a full picture of Wonderfully Made? Can you share a little bit more about how it started and what the ministry does today?
Absolutely. I would love to. I'll try to be quick, but when I was about 19, trying to rebuild my life after depression came for the first time, like a wrecking ball, one of the best things though, is it led me to the Lord. And I had so many friends who were struggling with a drug and alcohol addiction, abusive relationships, promiscuity, eating disorders, depression. And I saw this theme is that they didn't really know their worth. They didn't know the source of their worth, the source of their value. And as I was growing in my faith, I'd start reading the Bible. And in high school, I even had a passion for girls and women. I remember creating this magazine for a project called Real Teen, all about like real girls doing real things. And so even in high school, I had this passion to see girls and women really know their true worth. And so I remember reading Psalm 139 for the very first time in my life, and just how that verse, I praise you because I'm fearfully or lovingly and wonderfully made, how that impacted me. It became an anthem over my life, pointing me to my true source of worth. And I wanted to share that with every girl, every woman I can meet. And so from the very beginning, I had big dreams. I dreamt of big events and books and all these different things. And I knew it was supposed to be called Wonderfully Made. Because of the depression, I had to take a year off college and I was rebuilding my life, but I went to Pepperdine for 2 years and I started Wonderfully Made there. I just put up some posters and started gathering women together on the campus, and we had some community and we would do events. And then, as you'll read about in my book, I struggled with depression again following my sophomore year, and I had to withdraw from Pepperdine and get treatment with my parents in the Bay Area and start college at a university near my parents' home. And I wasn't very motivated about school, but I was motivated about starting this organization. And I put up posters again in the women's bathroom at Santa Clara University, and 3 women responded. We started meeting. One of the women became one of my most treasured friends. You both know how wonderful she is, Kayla. And with her presence, our community grew from about 4 of us to about 40 women on that campus. We spread to 3 other campuses in California. And then at some point we stopped doing the college chapters, but started doing young women's conferences. So we have hosted 10 young women's conferences for about 10,000 junior high school girls, young women, and their moms and mentors in California and Hawaii. Produced some short films, different testimony films, had various events, and started the podcast about 5 years ago. Our newest outreach, which I want to invite our listeners to be a part of, is an encouragement package outreach. So we send free encouragement packages to teenage girls ages 13 to 18 who are in emotional or mental distress and just need some encouragement. So you can simply go on our website under our About page. If you know of a young woman, there's a form you can fill out. You need her parents' permission, and we will send this package to her doorstep to remind her that God sees her, loves her, knows her, and that his eternal plan for her is good. So we are in a mission to help teen girls, young women, and the women who love them know their value and live spiritually and emotionally healthy lives, however we can do that. And I feel like we're just getting started because the need is so vast, the need is so big. And I'm grateful for every woman in the past almost 18 years now who've been a part of our community, whether they came to a conference or whether they were part of a college chapter or now the book. So I'm just love our community so much. And I feel like we're a force to be reckoned with. So,
Well, and it's so cool talking about conferences. And we've talked a lot about how a lot of times it's in the little things and it's not all about the big events. And through the conference and through your big dreams and you really pursuing that and trusting God to bring that to life and gathering this community of women and powering through, really, Jesus spoke to me through Psalm 139 at one of your conferences, and it turned my life around. It gave me this whole new view of the way that God feels about me, the way that God thinks about me. And I just think about that verse, how precious are your thoughts concerning me, O Lord? Like, how vast is the sum of them? If I were to number them, they would outnumber the grains of sand. And I just love it because I think about these, Jesus really used that to romance me back to his heart. And so I will forever be thankful for Wonderfully Made conferences and for Psalm 139.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Core audience for the book. Allie, who did you write the book for, and how can readers, I know there's probably so many women listening today and you're listening and you're like, where do I get a copy and how do we get the most out of, who'd you write the book for? And for all of us who are planning to read it, who are listening today, what's the best way to get the most out of this book?
Yeah, I really wrote this book for any mature teenage girl, young woman of any age who will read. I think if you are a Christian woman, I think this can really be a faith builder in your life. That's my hope. Like I said, it's filled with scripture, and I think it can just really encourage you in your life. I will tell you, I have a core audience has a special place in my heart that I wrote this book for, and I need our community of women to help take this message and to reach it and to share it with them. And that's really young women in our world, in our country, who may not know God, who may not have a relationship with the Lord, who might not be sure about their place in the world, their worth. They may be struggling with an addiction, a mental health issue, really lost, really hurting, and in need of hope. And we get to be the women who are beacons of hope to share this with them. And I just hope that this book can just be an instrument that God uses in their lives. But so those are the women that I have like a special like heart for when I was writing the book. And as a ministry, we're looking forward to donating copies to women in residential treatment centers across the country to really encourage them, because I know how hard it is to try to rebuild your life from the ruins. But I wrote this for any mature teenage girl, young woman, and woman, really. And I think one of the best ways, honestly, that I think our community can get the most out of this book is to get quiet, is to show up. I feel like Kate says this in her book. I probably quoted her in it. Show up for your actual life and show up with God and shut out the other voices, the other noise. So that may mean going on a social media detox. And I feel like the three of us are all about like living quiet online and like really living wide awake in our actual like everyday lives. And there's something so beautiful about that. And just inviting our readers to just be reflective, to be quiet, to use the time to go through this book and just really just go all in, because there's prayers, there's reflection questions. On top of that is to go through it with a friend or more. We have book club questions in the back. So you can start a book club with a couple other women and build your own wonderfully made community where you live with other women.
Yeah. Start a book club. I love it.
Yeah, start
That's
book
really
club.
great
And then
idea.
email us and send us a picture of your book club. We'd love to see it. Yeah.
Especially if you, and I'm talking to the listener right now, especially if you decide to make some life changes and you decide that you want to quiet yourself down so that you can hear what God has for you. Because I like to say that God doesn't shout, he whispers. And so we have to be willing. Can you imagine a friend invites you to coffee, you show up, they're on the phone the whole time. You're like, really? Wow, like I still love you, but that wasn't super fruitful. So I think that it's the same with God and us. It's the same with anybody we have a relationship with. If you're married, your boyfriend, your mom, your sister, whoever, your bestie, if we're not listening to them, we can't hear the goodness they have to give us. And what a good opportunity just to look at these 30 chapters and to say, I believe God has something for me. Whether if you're listening to this, you don't yet know Jesus, you are in for a treat. Even the titles, and I'm like, amen. Like literally read through the titles, like, look at that. Are you still? What? This is so good. So why wouldn't you lay it all down and just listen, however that looks? And I know what a challenge it is to live counterculturally like that, right? Like you said, the three of us are pretty quiet online. No, that's not norm. That's not the norm. And so I know there's so much pressure. Oh, did you see this on Instagram? Did you see that? And everybody seems to know what everyone else is talking about. It seems like everybody's all part of this crowd that I'm not a part of. That's a lie. Like, sure, they're seeing some stuff that maybe you didn't see, but you're getting so much more out of your life than they are. And so it would be helpful if you found a crew of friends that you all decided to detox together. If you're like, okay, me and my three besties, we're going to go through Wonderfully Made for 1 month, right? 30 days, 30 chapters. And we're just going to delete all our social apps off of our phone. Boom, 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 boom. Done. Or whatever. At the end of the 30 days, you check in. Hey, how was it? Was it worth it? Do you feel like you got more out of the book? I feel like what's true with this book is the same that's true in life, is you're going to get out of it what you put into it. Do you want to put in the effort? Do you want God to fill those cracks with gold? If you do, really apply yourself here. And I love your chapter on, obviously made to be present, because I'm just like,
well, you you basically inspired that chapter, friend. So Made to Be Present, you have to read it, and you have to read Kate's book after here now, if you haven't already.
Oh, where was I going with that? Oh, I love what Allie says. She says that it's not, I've always said this, and I did not say this in my book, but I've always thought, gosh, it's so unnatural to know what everybody's doing. And Allie says, you're going to see what your friends did without you. You're going to see all the bad news, like all these things. It's not natural. It's not good. And we only have so much brain space. And so Allie says in her book that we want to limit our exposure to news, to social media, to all these things, not just so that, oh, I limited my exposure, but no, it's to create space so that we can invest our energy into positive, beautiful things. And I can't think of a better reason to create that space. And that's another, the Made to Create chapter. I just absolutely loved that one. And creating doesn't mean like you're just doing macrame or you're just doing oil paints or whatever. You can create space. And that is something that is just so powerful that you can use for good. And that God is going to work that creativity into us. But unless we take out those things first, we can't receive those other things. So I'm going to encourage you, listener, get this book. I want you to carve out the time. It's just such a gift. Like these 30 chapters are just filled with good news. If you want good news, read this book and just take those distractions, gather a few friends, get in a group of 4, get in a group of 3, get in a group of 30. I don't care. Just do it and have that support that you need. And I promise you, what do they say? You do 21 days to break a habit, right? Or 21 days to start a habit. I can't remember. Break one, start one. Anyway, you got 30 here. Okay. So we're like 10% over. No, that would be 2. I'm not good at math. You know what I'm saying is like in these 30 days, you are going to make so much space in your heart, in your mind, in your soul for God to just come in and just drop truth bombs on you every day. Just truth bombs, truth bombs. And there is going to be so much. Oh, it's like the Made to Bloom chapter. You weed out that junk and then everything else can bloom. And so I am begging you, listener, give me your number. I'll call you. I'll just, I'll make sure. Did you do it? Did you go out and smoke? Tell me about your buddies. Who's going to make cookies? Invite me. I'll come. It'll be great.
I love that. So good, Kate. And I'm just thinking too, if you're listening today and you're like, I just need some alone time. I've had those seasons where I just want to cocoon and hide out with Jesus. And that's the place I'm in. And he's a great person to do a book club with. He'll listen to everything you have to say. He won't interrupt you. He wants all your honest thoughts. So if it's just you and Jesus, I think that's awesome too. And so it's available now for pre-order. And Allie, you're offering for those who order it now, lots of free gifts. And who doesn't love goodies? Don't you all? We all love getting like the goodies.
Yes. Pretty.
Yes.
What are some of the things they get?
Okay, well, hold it right there. In case we show the video, I have to show the grand prize.
I like it that there's a grand prize.
Yes, friends, we'd love for you to pre-order it. And we're giving away gifts. And this is the very first gift.
What?
Okay.
Yeah, a leather backpack made in Ethiopia by amazing women who receive fair wages for their work. And our friends Brittany and Ian started this company in Santa Barbara where we all live. Parker Clay, check them out. So one person who pre-orders will be drawn to win the backpack. And then also I made a Your Beautiful Life guide with like reflection questions to help you live more intentionally. There's a Spotify playlist, one song for each chapter that by theme, some scripture, digital affirmation cards, and an iPhone screen. Your support would mean the world to me, to our ministry. So you can just go to my personal website. It's alliemariesmith.com. I spell my name ALIE. And just there, you'll see it. Go buy it at the retailer of your choice, Christian Book, Amazon, Target, Barnes and Noble, and then come back, enter your name, your email, and your order, your receipt number, and you'll get all those gifts emailed to you. And pre-orders just really help like book retailers carry the book and keep the momentum going. So that's like an awesome way you can like help rally behind the message. So
Love it. Do it. One, get 5, give them to your friends, give them to your mom, give them to your sister.
Yes. And yeah, and then post a picture after your social media fest or before, not during.
Tell everybody like, this is why I'm going in, I'm going deep. Pray for me. Love you.
See you in 30 days. I love that. And then please write a review too. Allie, it's such a blessing for authors. And I know it will be for you, Allie, like if our community would write reviews and just share how the book, impacted you. And as you're reading it, please share your reviews with Allie. So as we close here, this has been so fun. Are there any words of encouragement, Allie and Kate, that you want to share as we close?
I just want to say I'm so grateful for our community, for every girl, every woman who has somehow, some way been a part of our ministry the last 18 years. I'm just so grateful for each of their lives. And our desire as a ministry is to encourage you in your faith, in your true identity, in your true value. And sometimes you go through things in life and they just don't seem good or they're not good. But just remember that God's eternal plan for you is good. And he is the great redeemer, and he will take the hard things, the difficulties, the brokenness, and redeem them for good. Sometimes we get glimpses of that this side of eternity. Other times we get the full picture in heaven. And then just think about that one young woman that is in your life that she's just lost. She's just searching. She's hurting. Will you please prayerfully consider sharing this book with her? Let's reach a generation of lost and hurting women with the truth that can set them free.
I love that. That's so good. That's so good. There's so much love to be had from God. And I always like to think of books as an opportunity to sit down with somebody who has something good to share with you, and for however many hours it takes you to read the book. And that's just not possible one-on-one. Like, this is making that possible. And so this is such an opportunity to receive the love that God has for you, to learn from a woman who has earned her stars. And I just think it's such a good opportunity to just be encouraged. I could use some encouragement. Y'all could use some encouragement. We all need some encouragement. And there's so much beauty here. And Allie, I just wanted to thank you again, like, for just reminding us that we are wonderfully made. I think without you in my life, I would forget that all the time. It's so powerful when, at your conferences or when I listen to your podcast, when I read your emails. We're dear friends, but I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Allie. And I feel I get ministered to by this woman. And it's, Christie, like you said, Psalm 139 changed you. Wow. Like, we are wonderfully made. That is so huge. So thank you, Allie, for just putting something that is so meaningful and powerful at the forefront and making it digestible and even fun and beautiful at the same time.
Friends, thank you. Thank you for loving me in spite of all the flaws, everything. Thank you for loving me, for your friendship, for your presence in my life. I'm such a better woman because of you both. So
the one who was faithful and never gave up. That's Allie Marie Smith. This has been fun. Thank you so much for everybody who joined us today. And we'll see you soon as part of the book club.
Bye.
bye. Thank you.